Welcome back to Eat, Sleep, Boxing Repeats YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Elliot and Paul for another weekly preview as we look forward to this weekend's action. Gents, thanks very much for joining me again. We've got more to cover this week than usual just because there's so much going on. We will touch on Saturday night's main event at the AO Arena in Manchester. Conor Benn, Chris van Heerden live on DAZN in the UK. I think that we've seen that Conor Benn's had an impressive year last year, and this is another fight on that sort of level, which we know he can compete at, and he's probably a real strong favourite in this fight. But just interested to get your thoughts on how competitive you expect this to be, how much of a test Van Heerden is going to be for Conor Benn. Should he really be fighting a better fighter than Van Heerden? Yeah, interested to get your thoughts. Elliot, we'll go to you first.
What do I think of this? I think it's not the most. I mean, on the one hand, I'm trying to sort of sell it big up a bit, but on the other hand, I'm kind of trying to express a bit of frustration, I suppose, at the opponent for Conor Benn here. I mean, I've had this suspicion. I mean, obviously, we know that Conor Benn's obviously been groomed as a pay-per-view star. There's always a kind of the suspicion, I suppose, that he's going to be protected to a degree. And if you look at that welterweight division, you're looking at other opponents he could have faced, and you can understand why he hasn't. And why he's, I suppose, going to go in with Van Heerden. I mean, Van Heerden's he's got 28 victories, 12 by KO, so you wouldn't necessarily sit there and go massive puncher, so the risk probably isn't there for that either. You know, Benn's style is quite open. So I expect, obviously, Benn to prevail. Younger man, simply younger man. But equally, I know people are saying he's going to be pushed. Will he be pushed? I kind of see him going mid-round. I mean, if you look at Van Heerden's record as well, he's fought, last 12 rounder he had was in 2016. So 8 rounds, 6 rounders after that. So that's a sign to me as well that there's, it's not going to be the contest that people are necessarily marketing as. But I can expect Conor Benn to go mid-round KO. It's kind of how I'm expecting. I don't expect it to be hugely competitive, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, we will see. I think we know Van Heerden's been stopped once in his career to Errol Spence, which was a few years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see what Conor Benn does will be compared to what Errol Spence does. Whether that's right or wrong is debatable, but I'm sure it will. Paul, we'll come to you next.
I think the only thing you've got to look at here as well with Benn is the inactivity of Van Heerden. So what was his last fight was in 2020. So I think that plays into Conor Benn's hands. Funny you mentioned the Errol Spence defeat there. That's his only knockout defeat. But obviously, as boxing fans, we will definitely just compare that straight away. But it was, back in 2015 or whatever it was, 7 years ago. I do expect Conor Benn to knock him out, and I do expect him to probably do it within the first 5 or 6 rounds. But again, I think it's one of those opponents where it's just another decent, okay name to have because the guy's record's okay. But if you know yourself that it's not even going to be a massive win, to be honest. So it's just kind of a matter of depends if he wins this and then he has a big fight before the end of the year. I don't care, but I don't want him to win this and then get another fight in September time and it's like a similar name to this. Like I'd say it was an Adrian Broner, I wouldn't want that. I want them to fight after this. I want them to kind of take the step up.
It's almost like another Algier, isn't it? Vargas kind of. Yeah. One of those names just gets reeled off and you're sort of like, yeah, it looks good with the opponents they've had, but equally you dial down into it. It's not.
Yeah. So I think on paper, Van Heerden's got a good record, but I just think if you look at what he's done in the last 2 or 3 years, and if you just look at the kind of who his last few wins have come up against, it's debatable how impressive it is. And I agree with what Paul's saying. I think that if this is the last fight of that level before he goes to that level, I think most people will accept it. It's just if he kind of stays at this level for the next 2 or 3 fights, people will start to get frustrated because we saw the fight against Sammy Vargas, Algieri, Granados. We know he can compete and beat with these guys with relative ease, in my opinion. So yeah, we just know he's of that certain level. However, we will move on to our undercard fight of the week. Paul, we'll go to you for this one.
Yeah, so it's I think we're all in agreement that it's probably actually potentially more looking forward to this than the main event. Chris Smith against Tommy McCarthy, the rematch. I think it's a great fight. I think cruiserweight division in Britain, and I know Tommy McCarthy is Irish, but in Britain and Ireland is. It's really we've got stacks of talent at the minute, and this is just another fight to showcase that. you all know my thoughts on the first fight. No bias at all, but I genuinely, no, all joking aside, I did think Tommy McCarthy just nicked it like a split decision or whatever. I wasn't completely outraged by the decision going with Bill Smith because it was close. However, I do think McCarthy won, and I do think that he will actually win this time. Again, I think Chris Bill Smith is he's a puncher, and I know he has a decent actually amateur background. In one of the podcasts I was listening to, he actually has a better amateur background than we all think. But Tommy McCarthy, I think he's just got better skills. The only thing I think he doesn't have as good as Bill Smith is the power. Whereas I think McCarthy's, he's far better boxer. He's more slick. Everything looks more natural. He's not as rigid and as stiff. It's kind of more free flowing. And I think that as long as he avoids Bill Smith's big shots, I think he'll rightfully get hopefully the correct decision this time.
Correct decision this time. Okay. Elliot, who do you think won the first fight and who do you think will win the second fight?
I legitimately scored it a draw actually the first fight. I thought that's not really fence sitting. I would happily see the guy win. Like but sort of 115, 114 sort of victory I could accept. I mean, I know Ian John Lewis gave it 116, 112, which was way out. Obviously it wasn't that sort of fight, but then it's one of those ones where you're like, I was looking at it going, I mean, McCarthy hurt Bill Smith in that fight as well, and also got hurt himself. It was a hell of a fight to observe. And you're looking at it again. I think I agree with Paul, to be honest with you. I think McCarthy's the more skilled boxer. He was boxing, counter punching in the first fight was really impressive down the stretch as well. So you're looking at it again, counter puncher versus pressure fighter. I'd like to see McCarthy get the nod. To be honest with you, I would. I just think it'd be nice if the fight patterns out as the first fight patterns out. Then I'd like to see McCarthy get it this time. But I mean, obviously it was close. So either I envisage this one also being close. I think McCarthy won the first fight, and I think he will lose the second on the judges again. But I'd like to see him get the nod, if truth be told.
Cool. We will see. I think it's gonna be another close fight, as the first one was an incredibly close fight, and I think it will be again. I think Bill Smith won the first fight, and the second fight, I think again it will go the distance and it'll be very close again. Jokes aside, I think it could go either way. I'd probably edge towards Bill Smith, but I don't say that with a huge amount of confidence. We will have to see what happens. Cool. Moving on. I think we've got a couple of under the radar fights this weekend. As mentioned before, there's so much going on. Elliot, we'll go to your first. What have you got for us?
Yes, my first one is don't make me say his first name, but I'm going to go with Isaac Cruz versus Gamboa. And the reason I like this fight is because it's almost got the themes of a young up and coming fighter essentially against an elderly established fighter. Very different styles essentially. Well, I say that. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily say that Cruz has got. I mean, he's obviously got out of his 22 wins, 15 KOs. You're looking at it going, okay, there's power there, but Gamboa 34 fights, 30 wins, 18 KOs. So that's obviously probably going to wane with age. So it might not live up to a big knockout in this fight. But you're looking at the people that he's been in with. So Gamboa obviously been in with pretty much everyone. Fought Haney, Davis, Beltran, name a few, Crawford, Salido. Isaac Cruz hasn't, but he's been in with Davis. So there's a mutual opponent there between both of them. And you look at it and go that really Davis took Gamboa apart really one wide. Cruz actually ran him a lot closer in the fight. So it suggests to me really that I suppose Cruz might be favourite of this. 23 versus 4-year-old. But I was just looking to get your guys' thoughts. Just because I like the seductive element of it, the age element of it. Again, Cruz being one of those Mexican guys, just comes off the conveyor belt, and you're sitting there going like, you're 23, but you've had 25 fights. Outrageous. So I was just going to get your guys' thoughts on it. Really, how do you see that one playing out? And I'm going to come actually to Elliot Stott first. How do you see it going, mate?
Yes, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I remember when Isaac Cruz got announced as Javonte Davis's opponent, everyone was saying, "Oh, I'll give it 3 rounds, give it 4 rounds." People just completely wrote him off without maybe looking into him too much, realizing he's actually kind of a world level fighter. And I'm a big fan of fights where you've got, as you said, kind of like the young pretender against someone who's been around for a long time. You can tell a lot where if someone's still got it or if someone has what it takes to get to that level that the older fighter was at. Would have to go would have to kind of lean towards Cruz for this fight. I think Gamboa has been around a long time, been in with some really good names. Watched his last fight against Devin Haney, and he's kind of coming towards the end of his career, whereas Isaac Cruz has actually looked quite good in his last fight despite losing it. So definitely going with Isaac Cruz for this fight, but definitely one to watch out for.
Paul, would you concur A with the result and B with Isaac Cruz as a prospect in the That's obviously a stacked division down there as well. There's a lot of big names in there already. Do you think Isaac Cruz is a guy that can also come into that division at some point over the next 18 months and start making waves?
Yeah, I agree with both. I definitely agree. I do think Cruz will win. And I think the main question for me is here, I think there's questions still over at his age and stuff. There's questions over Gamboa's chin. Obviously, it's 4 defeats, 3 have come by stoppage, and Cruz does have a bit of power there. So I could see it. If there is going to be a knockout, I think it will be Cruz, and it would potentially be mid to late. But I'd probably see it going points. And in terms of to answer your question about Cruz becoming a real player in the division in the next 18 to 24 months, I can see it because he, as you say, he is young. I think the Gervonta Davis fight, if you're Isaac Cruz, you're thinking this is really a win-win for me, because if I he obviously believed he could win the fight. It didn't go that way, but he put on a good performance against Gervonta Davis, who was an overriding favorite, so he didn't do himself any harm in that fight. He's young, he can come again. It's one of them where you can just put it down to lack of experience. But the next time he steps up and fights, even in this fight, that could play into his hands in this fight. He knows how that feels to be in the big fights, and he was a big underdog in that one as well. And going forward, say he does win this and fights, all the who's who of the division, because there's so many. I think it'll stand him in good stead. But yeah, I do say I think Isaac Cruz will be victorious at the weekend.
Thank you very much. And there's that's obviously for our US/international viewers, but we go back over to Elliot Stotton now, who's going to take us back home with another under the radar fight.
Yeah, from the States to York Hall. It's quite a stark comparison. MTK are back at York Hall on Friday night for quite a good show actually. And the main event is Gavin Gwynn against Luke Willis for the British and Commonwealth lightweight title. The British lightweight title is vacant, whereas Gavin Gwynn currently holds the Commonwealth title. Yeah, so I just think we saw Luke Willis beat Ryland Charlton in Liverpool last year in a good fight. Gavin Gwynn's had a good couple of wins. I remember beat Sean McComb last year in I think it was behind closed doors fight. But that was a good victory for him. So yeah, kind of struggling to edge towards who I think is going to win. I think Gwynn will be the favourite, but again, I think we said this in previous videos. British title fights are quite reliable when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to being good fights, where you can have a world title fight, but it's not necessarily going to be a good fight. You can have what you think is going to be a 50-50 and it can end up being completely one-sided, whereas British title fights at York Hall are usually very, very good. So that's what I'm hoping is going to happen this time. But yeah, keen to get both of your thoughts as always. We'll go to Paul first this time.
Yeah, it is a really good fight. I think that not very many people would have heard really of Luke Willis unless you're from Liverpool and before the Ryland Charlton fight. And then that was a good win. I think Charlton was probably the favourite there. And the one people have heard of after his win over Joe Laws and his fight with Florian Marcoux as well and dropping him. And Gavin Gwynn, I think you mentioned there the Sean McComb fight. Obviously got a 7th round knockout victory there. That was a strange fight. It was almost Sean McComb halfway through was just like, no, not tonight. I think, if they were to ever fight again, I think Sean McComb would win pretty comfortably. But this fight, I think you got to look at Gavin Gwynn's, the company he's kept in his losses have been obviously with James Tennyson and Joe Cordina. And I don't think you can say that Luke Willis is on either of those two levels. So in that case, I still something's telling me Luke Willis is going to win this fight. But again, I echo what you're saying, Elliot. With the British title on the line, your call is just all the ingredients, and it'll definitely be a super fight. And I do see it going the distance.
Good stuff. Elliot, I remember the last time there was a British title fight at York Hall, me and you disagreed about what the result was going to be, and you ended up being right by quite some distance. So keen to know who you're going for this one as well.
Well, I think tell you what I am going for, and that is the fact that there's Gwynn obviously 3 KOs in his 14 victories. Willis with 1 in his 11. I'm going for it going 12 rounds. That's my first thing that's going to happen. I'll be stunned if it didn't. I know Paul was saying obviously about Sean McCone just essentially getting to like the 6th round and going, no, I don't fancy this. To obviously give Gwynn that stoppage victory. I think, like you guys have also said, British title to me is always a sign of quality. You know, you're going to get just 2 guys essentially just slugging out who can both come again. And I agree with Paul also in that Charlton was the favourite against Willis, in my opinion. And also, I think he was the legitimate favourite in that fight. And I expected him to prevail in there. Expected Willis to lose that fight. So he's come through, obviously undefeated as well. I'm actually going to think, and again, what Paul was saying, echo what Paul was saying, was Gwynn losing to Cordina and Tennyson. Obviously, Tennyson infamous now for Johnny Nelson's rant about hurling him in with Tank Davis straight after that victory. I'm going to go with... Paul's throwing me now. Paul's throwing me with this Willis. He can see something. You know, Paul's got his glasses on, so I know he's not concentrating as much as last week. But I reckon I'm going to go... I reckon Gwynn points for me. Is how I see it. Win UD. But it'd be a cracking fight. Cracking fight. I mean, you sit there and go, there's probably not going to be a knockdown, but for guys who just enjoy watching boxing, watching 2 guys like that, it'd be a great fight. 12 rounds of that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this more than anything else this weekend, if I'm being completely honest. Cool. Paul, finally we'll go to you, mate, for our final, suppose you could call it under the radar fight this weekend, but it shouldn't be really. But yeah, we'll let you tell us all about it.
Yeah, I want to quickly mention, obviously, we've got a unification fight in the welterweight division between Errol Spence and Dennis Ugas. And I think you're right, Elliot. No, it definitely has gone under the radar. You know, I haven't even seen a whole lot of it over Twitter or social media even. Strange, but it is a cracking fight. You know, you got Errol Spence, who everyone thinks is the number one, well, between him and Crawford, and the number one in the division. He's the IBF and WBC champion. Then you look at Ugas, is obviously last when he won the super title against Manny Pacquiao. He was the regular champion before that, and then they had to see who becomes super champion, and he beat Pacquiao. I, for one, didn't think he would have beaten Pacquiao. I know Pacquiao was an aged Pacquiao, but I still thought he would have got the job done. So I think it is an interesting fight. I do have to favour Errol Spence personally. I think he's got all the tools needed to beat Ugas. Ugas has never been stopped. Spence does have 21 knockouts in his 27 wins. However, the key thing here is I think that his last 3 fights have all gone the distance. Errol Spence, so I could potentially see that happening again. But I do think you have to favour. I think you've got to favour Errol Spence just, and yeah, I think it'll be. It's just one of them. You want this fight, get this fight out of the way, and will we finally get the Crawford fight? Can you say it before the end of the year? Probably not. But we just all want that fight. We're just craving that fight, really, aren't we? But yeah, interesting to get your thoughts. I'll come to Elliot Grigg first.
Yeah, it's a cracking fight. I totally agree with what you're saying, Paul, actually, to be honest. I think out of that division is probably the best fight that can be made outside of Spence versus Crawford for me. I mean, you've got other names like Ernest Ortiz Jr., Thurman, like a relatively old Thurman, still going around there as well. So I think for me, it's a cracking fight. I think I agree with what you're saying. I would lean obviously towards Errol Spence winning it, just obviously on sort of age and freshness to a degree as well. I mean, actually, sounds weird saying that given what's happened to him outside of the ring, but within the ring, I would kind of favour him in that respect. But equally, I'm just trying to think: do I see it going points, or do I see it doing a knockout? I can to be honest, I can see both. It's not like nothing's really leaping out to me. Like you were saying, if it went 12 rounds, I wouldn't at all be surprised to see him win fairly wide, though over 12. But I kind of favour a late stoppage. I think somewhere beyond 9. I can see that happening as well. It won't be early for me, but yeah, either of those results I wouldn't be surprised. But I favour Spence and a hell of a fight. And I think you're right as well. I don't really understand why this has gone under the radar, given the size and the potential fights in that division, but it definitely has, and it's a great choice.
Interesting thoughts. What about you, Stolly?
Yeah, so I'm one of these people. I think that Spencer Crawford are kind of levels above anyone else in the division, but still looking forward to it. I think just because Ugas is obviously on a crest. Yeah, bit of a crest of a wave here, so having that victory against Pacquiao on short notice as well. I do think Spencer will win. I think whether it's a wide point decision or a stoppage. However, one point I do want to make is that Errol Spence, he's only had 1 fight since that nasty car accident, which was against Danny Garcia. which that was a Danny Garcia who's kind of quite a bit past his best, in my opinion. That was 18 months ago. And I've been thinking for some time that Errol Spence is a big welterweight. And I'm very interested how easily he's that bit older now. He's been out the ring for another 18 months. How easily is he going to make 147 now? Could be completely wrong. I've not been in camp with him. I'm not his nutritionist, but I mean, that's one thing I'm interested. I've been saying for 3-4 years that guy, he's actually quite a big, he's a big old welterweight, and I'm interested to see how easily he makes weight on the Friday.
Yeah, I think it's a great fight. And thanks for your thoughts. I think we're all in agreement that Spence will win, but it's a matter of how he wins it, and hope he does look good doing so. Because obviously it's the Crawford fight we all want. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they can get that made. If not this year, definitely in 2023.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll have to see. I would really hope so. Really hope so. We'll stay positive about that one. All right, gents. Thank you for your time as always. Yeah, there's been lots to cover. Which has been fantastic. Really appreciate your thoughts, and I will see you next week for Tyson Fury against Dillian White, which we're looking forward to. All right, cheers, gents. Have a good day. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks.